Today, I wanted to talk about something a little bit more personal. I wanted to talk about a kind of journey I've been on in terms of self development recently. And that for me at the moment is learning to get more comfortable actually being vulnerable. And the reason that I'm saying actually is because I've never really considered myself someone who's like not vulnerable or like not honest or transparent or authentic or any of those things. Like, I've always considered myself to be that anyway. But something that I've realized recently, maybe this is really fucking obvious to everyone else, but I've only just kind of pieced it together in my brain, is that there's a difference between being genuinely vulnerable and kind of being vulnerable in hindsight. Let me explain what I mean. I think a lot of us feel like we're being really vulnerable when we're talking about things we've been through and like hardships that we've gone through and like, being open about things we've struggled with in the past. And like, maybe it's breakups, maybe it's some sort of grief, or like you've struggled with something personally. And like, when you talk to people about that, you think, I'm being so vulnerable right now. And I'm not saying that you're not, because there is like levels to it. And that is fairly vulnerable, you're telling someone something really personal and like difficult that you've gone through. Of course, that's kind of vulnerable, but I think it's different to talk about something that you're going through while you're going through it and to be open and like honest about something when you're in the midst of it. I think is a lot more vulnerable than talking about it in hindsight. Once you've healed from it and gone through it and learned all the lessons, it's kind of like now you're talking about it from a different place. So it's a lot easier to be open about that because it's no longer a problem. It's not so fresh anymore. Do you know what I mean? And I think as well, there's a level there in terms of like protecting your ego, because obviously vulnerability, we all have an issue with it. We all find it kind of hard to be like really vulnerable because it's difficult to like, I don't know, I guess our egos struggle with it a little bit to come across like we don't have our shit together and like we don't have all the answers and, shit like that. It's quite human to find that hard, of course. So I think we all kind of have a front of like, I'm fine, it's fine, I'll work it out. And I think because of that and because of the ego kind of coming into play with it, it's like if you're talking about something that's happened in the past, your ego is safe because you're talking about like, okay, I've overcome it. I got through it. I got past it. I'm stronger. I've learned all these lessons. I'm not in that situation anymore. The problem's no longer there. I got over it. You're talking about it from a place of, but I'm over it now. So it doesn't really feel, it's kind of like you're being vulnerable, but you're kind of not because there's no weakness there anymore. No one can really like hurt you in any way because you're like, well, I'm over it now. So you can say what you want. But I think to sit across from someone and actually be like, yeah, I'm going through this. I don't have the answers. I don't know what the fuck to do about this. I'm finding this hard, like, blah, blah, blah. That's a different kind of vulnerability to being like, I went through it. And yeah, it was really tricky. And here's some advice for you. It's so easy to kind of show the end result and like be like, I went through this hardship and then I got to this place and this is like me fine again. The other side of it, like you're just showing the end result and not any of the process or how you felt in the middle. It's kind of, you're glossing over a lot of it and you're just showing the end result. And I realized that this might be something that I do. Like I said, I've always considered myself someone pretty fucking honest and open. Like I literally have a podcast talking about all sorts of shit. Like I'm clearly not that closed of a book. Do you know what I mean? But at the same time, is it really being vulnerable if I'm talking about shit that I've learned and I'm like giving advice and lessons? Like, no, and it's not the same thing. Like, there's benefits to it and it's great and I find it helpful for me and hopefully for other people. Like, it's not a bad thing to do. It's just how vulnerable is it? Is basically what I'm trying to talk about. I think I kind of realized recently that, like, in my daily life, even with people that I'm really fucking close to, there is still a level of like things that I'm not comfortable being vulnerable about. And again, like, is that bad? I don't know. Like, you don't have to obviously tell everyone everything. Like, if you're not comfortable being vulnerable about something, then like maybe that's okay. Like, I'm sure it is. But I think I realized there's some things that just like, I don't know, maybe I just noticed recently that my ego's a little bit too much there for my liking. And another thing that I noticed is I think it kind of severs my relationship with myself a little bit. let me explain where I got that from. I think on some level, if you're kind of pretending, and obviously this is not like conscious and it's also like just human as fuck, like it's not the end of the world, but to kind of pretend like you're not going through shit that you're going through or not feeling things or not struggling with things and kind of have this facade, which is the ego, you're kind of denying your current real experiences in a way, which I feel like can kind of sever your relationship with yourself because you kind of feel like there's a level of embarrassment there or shame or guilt or something where if you're actually, going through something in real time and you're kind of pretending that you're not to people, again, this is not conscious. It's just something that like we kind of do without noticing, but I'd recently noticed it, hence why I'm talking about it. I think it can just make you feel a little bit further away from yourself because you're kind of putting up this facade in between the person that you're talking to and you. Do you know what I mean? And obviously, it's like a self protection thing, and sometimes that's necessary as fuck. Like, you don't want to not have that ever and just be like completely upfront about everything. Like, there is some level of privacy, and maybe like, you don't want to talk about some things, and that's of course fine. But I think it can become like kind of a bad habit where you're just leaning into the facade too often, and I think that can start to sever that relationship where you kind of just feel a little bit fake and you feel a little bit like there's this real you when you're by yourself. For me, that's when I'm like my most authentic self is when I'm alone because I'm introverted as fuck. But I think there's that you where you're aware of everything you're feeling and going through, whether it's good or bad, and all these experiences and feelings and blah blah blah. And then when you kind of go out into the world with other people, it can feel a little bit like if you're putting up that facade a little bit too much, then you feel like there's kind of two different versions of you. Is this making any fucking sense? I feel like I sound like I'm high or something. Um, but I don't know. I think I realized recently that like the difference between me alone and me with other people, I don't really like it. Not that like I'm fake. This is the thing. It's like I feel like I'm making it sound like I'm acting like a different human being and I'm like being really fake and shit, and I'm not. Like I'm not doing that. It's more just like tiny little experiences and feelings that I'm having that I'm kind of just pretending aren't there for, I guess, vulnerability's sake, like not having to feel really vulnerable or whatever. I don't know. I'm still kind of, this is a journey, as I said. But I think I realized I feel vastly more comfortable alone at the moment than even people that like I'm really close to because I'm not being upfront and honest enough about shit, if that makes sense. And again, it's not anything in particular. It's not like there's some particular experience I'm going through that like no one knows about or anything. It's just like general day-to-day stuff I notice. Like I'm just acting a little bit too much like that I have no problems, I go through nothing, I am so put together all the time. When it's like, Brooke, like, fuck off. Like, no one is that way. But it's just so human to kind of pretend that that is how you are. But there's something so nice about just owning who you are and what you feel in the moment and what you're going through. It's so like freeing. I just think the more that you kind of hide and pretend that that you aren't feeling certain things or that you aren't a certain way, the more that I think you make yourself feel like it's something to be embarrassed about, something to feel ashamed of, and something that like you have to hide because you kind of are digging this hole for it when it's not necessary. And like there's nothing wrong with showing the more vulnerable side of you, whether it's like that you're feeling really burnt out at the moment, or maybe you're having money issues, or maybe you're not feeling really social, or just little things here and there where it's just like your actual experience of how you're feeling and you're not honoring that and you're kind of just ignoring it and not showing it to anyone. I think it just then you start to feel like it's this kind of links to my shadow self episodes. I think I have two now. You just start to feel like it's something to be ashamed of and something wrong when it's not. It's just when you don't talk about things like that, I think for a long time you start to feel like there's a reason for it and it's like a bad thing when it's not, if you know what I mean. And like I said, I feel so comfortable when I'm by myself and like it's like this is so hard to like conceptualize in word. I'm hoping this makes sense, but I've been trying to practice being really vulnerable for the last like month or two not just like out of nowhere, but like in a situation where like I could be really vulnerable or just honest, just upfront in an answer or like in a conversation, or I could go into the facade. I'm actively being like, no, bro, just like say what you actually fucking think, say what you actually feel, like say what you're actually going through. Don't try and pretend anything right now. Because I've been kind of trying to practice that recently, I've realized how much fucking like better it feels and how much more free I feel. And I feel like I'm then bringing the real me, the me that I am when I'm in my bedroom alone, to everything that I'm going to when I'm out at work or I'm out at a dinner or I'm out for drinks. Like it's the same me and it feels so much more like relaxing and I just feel like, oh my God, I can like take that kind of mask off. Do you know what I mean? And it just feels like I just enjoy it so much more. And I think that's because in a way it's easier. Then I don't feel like I have to be like fucking on it thinking about what to say and how to come across and blah blah. Blah. I'm just like, fuck it, like this is just me. You know, it's easier in that way, but also I just feel closer to myself because I'm showing up as my actual self. Do you know what I mean? I feel like it is just another level of like having a close relationship with myself is like being her whatever situation that I'm in is vulnerable. This is what I mean. Like it's kind of vulnerable to actually do that because we feel so much more comfortable when we feel like we're kind of controlling how we're coming across. And that sounds like a bit psycho, but you know what I mean. Like it feels a little bit more safe in a way. It is vulnerable to just be like, I'm just gonna fucking be myself and say what, you know, be honest as fuck. It's it's vulnerable and that's why a lot of us have a hard time doing it, you know? To talk about something you're actually in and going through and feeling could help you, you know, interact with this person. It could give you advice and you could come to a conclusion. It could help, you know, that's what people are there for, to help you with this shit. Um, and you could actually find that really fucking useful and you're kind of, you know, robbing yourself of that opportunity to lean on people when, you know, you're waiting for it to no longer feel uncomfortable to then talk about it. You know, it's kind of like you have this clause in your head of like, I'll be vulnerable, I'll be so authentic and honest and vulnerable and transparent as long as it's not making me uncomfortable. If it's making me uncomfortable, I'm not ready to talk about it yet. But once I'm past it and it's like in it's behind me, I'll be so vulnerable about it. And it's like that's just not being that fucking vulnerable though. That's just telling people things you have done. And like your heart is very much not on your sleeve in that conversation. You know, no one can really get to you. But whereas when you're like, I think you get the point, but like when your heart is kind of on your sleeve mid conversation about something you're going through, it's scary. But like, you know, I realized that it makes me feel just way more like myself. I don't know how else to describe it. Then I feel like this person is talking to the real me rather than like this like media trained version of myself. Like, and again, I am dramatizing the fuck out of it. Like, there's not that big of a difference at all. It's just because I'm quite an introspective person and like I will think about these things. No one else would probably notice this, unless you're like ultra close to me. But yeah, like I said, recently I've been really dabbling in like being super fucking straight up and like even if it makes me like cringe and like feels like so unnatural, I'm like, just do it, just say it. And like, I've been really enjoying it. Like, I would highly recommend trying. And it's tricky because it is the tiny shit. And another thing that I've noticed with it is I don't find socializing as exhausting when I'm being really vulnerable and like my actual fucking self. It takes kind of a lot of work um to put up a front of any kind or to kind of be conscious of what you're saying and how you're coming across and things. And like, I think for someone that, like I said, I'm quite introverted and like my social battery does not last very long. And I think I've realized like it lasts longer when I'm being really honest and upfront and like aligned with the like me and the me that they're with. Does this make sense? When they're aligned and they're like one, I don't find socializing as tiring because I think as well, then I feel that trust that like I'm following my like intuition a bit and I'm following how I feel and like if like I'm having a nice time, but the second that like maybe I want to go home or I'm tired or whatever, like I know I'll honor that need too. Do you know what I mean? It's just like being in alignment with yourself, I guess. It's refreshing, and I'm someone that's always been very much that way with my relationship with myself. It's just been a bit different when I'm being social around other people. It's kind of then kind of it's the journey of trying to make those two versions of myself. I sound insane. Um the same version. And you're never going to be able to make them exactly the same because it's just how people work. Like when you're around people, you do kind of shift. I can't remember what that is fucking called, but you shift kind of how you're presenting slightly to fit into that situation a bit more, which is a positive thing in a lot of ways. Like it's kind of needed, but sometimes it's not. And that's what I'm talking about when it's not needed. And I'm just like choosing to not do that. Just makes sense. What the fuck? Like I think it can be so tiring to keep doing that to the point where like I said, my social battery will run out a lot faster because it's like I'm doing this kind of mental work in the back of my brain somewhere that's kind of running me down a bit. And then I'm more inclined, like if I'm being really honest, which is the theme, so I'm going to, it will make me feel a little bit more like "Ugh, I want to go home a lot earlier because I just like I need to get back to myself. Like I'm this, I need a break from this mask. I just want to go fucking home. And like when I'm by myself, I recharge and I go back into like me. And I think when I'm not putting on that mask, I'm so dramatizing it. There's not really a fucking mask. Like, do you know what I mean? I'm just not like I'm two different personalities by any means. Um, but when I'm like being more authentic with people, I don't feel as desperate to like fucking go home. Like I'm someone who like I spend normally like an hour or two with someone and I'm like, I wanna go home. I wanna go home. My social battery has run out and I'm tired and I wanna go home. And that, to be fair, that is kind of just me. Like my social battery is quite small, but I've noticed it elongates the length, the battery life when I just feel more like myself because then I don't feel like I'm leaving myself at home to go and be a different person. I'm like bringing her with me. Someone I hope understands what I'm talking about. Yeah, it's just been really refreshing, and I think it's been bringing me more comfort within myself. Like I just, like I said, I feel closer with myself. I feel more comfortable in myself, and I feel honestly really fucking proud of myself because I'm really enjoying it, and it's not easy, and I'm making the work and the effort to do it, and I'm enjoying it, and it's benefiting me. So I'm like proud of myself, you know? And and I think, oh my God, I didn't even talk about this. I think a big part of it as well is in relationships, letting your guard down. It's the same fucking conversation. Like I'm someone who I'm quite protective of myself, and I definitely have a guard that's very present. I'm not someone who am I someone who has my heart on my sleeve? I've never really thought about it. I don't kn I'm tempted to say no, but like I don't know. Let me think about it. I'll get back to you. But I feel like I'm someone who's just quite protective of myself, and I think that can cause like in relationships, like romantic relationships, it can cause you to kind of, I don't know, being vulnerable in a relationship feels like a different level of vulnerable because like they can really fucking hurt you. Do you know what I mean? This is scary. That's scarier than like maybe being that way with a friend. Like a friend, the worst they could really do, I guess, is judge you and make you feel like shit for it, which isn't nice. But like a boyfriend or something, like it's just, it feels like a different territory. And I think as well, that's kind of just another area where it's like relevant as fuck, is like being that way, bringing that into my relationship or like whatever relationship you're in yourself. Like I think bringing that in, letting yourself be yourself, your vulnerable self in your relationship is so beneficial, and like your partner will want you to do that. Do you know what I mean? Like it's kind of the only way to really be in a relationship because it kind of feels, again, like if you've got this facade in between you and this person, and then there's this facade in the middle, it's a self-protection thing, isn't it? You're feeling a little bit like they can't hurt you so much, and there's a wall there, and like you're protected, the guard is up situation. And I completely get it. But it's like, I don't know how much you can really, really be in the relationship when that's really present, you know? Um, and it's tricky because, again, like in relationships, that can be triggered and like your guard can go back up if certain things happen and blah, blah, blah. But I guess it's just making an active effort to try and be authentic and vulnerable and be yourself in your relationships and in your friendships and with your family and like people you work with and just everything. Like, you're going to get so much more fulfillment and enjoyment out of these relationships if you let yourself be yourself in them, and kind of get rid of that separation. Whether you're in company or you're alone or whatever, trying to just like bring the real you to all of these different areas in your life. Because then if something, it doesn't click, then it doesn't click. And like you'll know that because you're like, I'm being myself and it's not fucking working. And then, you get information from that. Whereas if you're having this facade as well, you can waste your time because like it's not really you, and like it can get you into probably relationships and situations that aren't for you too. Like there's so many benefits to making an effort to just be your authentic, honest self, and it's scary. It's hard. And I think if you really think about it, like I guarantee every single person watching this has that facade because you kind of need one to a degree. You need to have one that you can whip out sometimes. But like, I don't know. It's just kind of a journey I've been on. It's been making me feel closer with myself. It's kind of exciting. To feel like I'm really bringing myself to the table, and like I don't know, it feels exciting. I enjoy the honesty of it. I feel close with myself. I feel more connected with myself. And like if I can do anything that's going to make me feel more connected and aligned with myself, I want to do it because my relationship with myself, I don't want something severing it. I don't want something getting in the way or making me feel ashamed or guilty or weird about who I am. I don't like that. I'm very self-love. I fucking love that. I want, if there's anything I can do, do you know what I mean? That will make me happier, I want to do it. So, yeah, some food for thought, hopefully. Um, it's definitely an interesting one. Maybe I'll update you in a few episodes how I'm feeling about this. I'll let you know if I do think I wear my heart on my sleeve. I don't fucking know. To some degree, yes, but I think I low-key do, but like just don't show it. Like, which is exactly what I'm saying in this episode, is like I like low-key do, but like no one will know that because I don't show that. But then I also kind of think I just don't. I don't fucking know. Anyway, I'm gonna shut the fuck up. I'm gonna shut up. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Interesting one. Again, food for thought, hopefully. Let me know your thoughts. Comment below. I always find that very interesting to read. And yeah, thank you for listening and for watching as per usual. And yeah, I will talk to you next Tuesday.